People do not care how much you know till they know how much you care.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome everyone to Keep the Change. We're so glad you're with us today as always. And once again, I have an incredible guest who has been a friend over the years. He's been a friend of the podcast. And I am just so honored that during these podcasts, he and I get to hang out for a half hour or so, and I get to pull wisdom from this really powerful leader. Chris Saraceno is the vice president and partner of the Kelly Automotive Group. He has again been on with us a couple times talking leadership and his book, Theory of Five. And as we were thinking in terms of today's leaders and what they really need, Theory of Five just popped to the surface. So the book was written in 2022. There's a training course that goes along with it. There's also a workbook that goes along with it. And today, our author and friend, Chris Saraceno, is going to join us and tell us the Theory of Five. Good morning, Chris.
It's always a pleasure and always an honor. And again, thank you for keeping in touch and being a friend for all these for actually several decades now.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I appreciate that so much. I'm honored to be in the presence of us where we get to just lift others up and help them be better leaders. So, Chris, you have a story. You have a story of great leadership. You have a story of leading a number of men and women in your dealerships. And you have a story of writing the book, Theory of Five. So tell us about the story, how it evolved, and what the book is all about. I'm going to give you the stage, my friend.
Well, I believe everybody, if you want to become the best version of yourself, we all need some type of coaching or we need some type of mentoring to support us in our growth. And typically, we've all heard the statement of you become the average of the five people you spend the most time with. Now, that's part of it. Who are the five people you spend the most time with? But more importantly, the five areas that you and I have talked about behind the scenes, we see people that are the happiest and most prosperous. Those are people that typically what they're doing is they have the five key areas that they focus on. And the first area is faith. We believe you have to believe there's something greater than yourself, that some spirituality that you have, some type of religion you have to have. The second thing is who you're going to choose as your partner in life. That person, you and I have talked about this before. The person you choose could make the difference between you being average or great. And we have both met people that we thought were going nowhere that excelled because they fell in love and they met the right person and they want to become the best version. And we've met other people that we thought were going somewhere and they were going to be a star. And all of a sudden they met the wrong person and that person really hurt them and brought them backwards. So you got to make sure you choose that partner wisely. And third is that whenever you have children, nieces, nephews, it's really tough to have a happy and prosperous life if you see your children struggling, if they can't survive and thrive on their own. As a parent, as an uncle, as an aunt, it's really tough to say, oh yeah, I have a great life if you see someone can't even survive on their own. The next one then is understanding business and finance. If you can't understand money, you can't take care of the people you love, you can't donate to the places you want to donate to, and you can't do the business and do the things you want to do in life and live where you want to live. And last but not least, you and I have talked about this before. If you don't have your health, you only have one body, and it's the only body you're ever going to have. If you don't have health and you're not physically fit, it's tough to enjoy anything when you're in pain. So those are the five areas plus the five people. And you and I talked about this a little bit earlier. I had some questions that I wanted to ask the audience a little bit later on today. We could do that right now as far as the question. So I'll go through the first question. I really would love the audience to watch this several times, but I'd love you to write these down too, because these are key questions because people will treat us the way we allow them to treat us. And I want you to ask yourself these questions. The first one is, who are the five people you spend the most time with? Go ahead, write those people's names down. And then, are they influencing your actions, your mindset, your habits, your thinking, and goals and results in a positive way or a negative way? Picture their faces. Picture who they are. Picture after you have a conversation with them. How do you leave? Do these people represent the five areas we just talked about? Is there somebody that you look at as your spiritual mentor? Is there somebody that you're saying, that's the best person I've ever met in relationships? that's the person I'm going to reach out to. When I have a challenge, I want to pick up that phone. I want that lifeline. I want that olive branch to go out, talk to that person and say, you know what, Bart, how would you handle this? What would you do in this situation? Next is parenting. Who's the best parent you know? And do you have somebody you know you're comfortable picking up that phone and asking some questions to them? Next is business and finance. Who do you know in business and finance that you admire that you can make that phone call to? Who of those 5 people do you know? And do you have several people? And the last is, but not least, is health and fitness. Who's the one that's going to challenge you and say, hey, should you be eating that? Hey, you remember, you just had your cholesterol a little high. Hey, you mentioned that you wanted to lose weight. We all need somebody that is comfortable enough to challenge us because the people who care about us the most, they are very comfortable challenging us because they care. And sometimes there might be a little conflict, but conflict can also build chemistry if it's done in a caring way. So, really, the audience is what Bart and I would like you to do is to make sure that you find people who are your people that you analyze, that when they make that phone call, you're excited to see them and talk to them, or do you dread it? I have a few more questions a little later on, but Bart, let's talk about this.
And one thing I really think, Chris, is we look at our industry, the one that you and I have been in for a long time. We see a lot of folks, a lot of people that are elite leaders follow a theory of five philosophy. Then there's those people that maybe have gotten misrepresented, maybe not gotten enough attention. And I believe the people that we're talking about here are middle managers in dealerships. We train salespeople, usually general managers, partners, they're getting their own, they're on it, they're going to meetings, they're learning. And those middle managers, the ones who work 60, 65 hours a week, are doing their job and then going home. And what we know is this: those people in that middle can never grow unless they're learners. Learners are earners.
Yeah.
And I'm going to shout out to you if you know someone who's in that used car manager, parts manager, service writer, somebody who's a finance manager. Are they just going to work, or are they going to work and to learn and to grow so they can move up the ladder? It might not even be moving up the ladder in the company hierarchy, but moving up the ladder in the soul of their existence. In other words, being better people in their partnerships, in their family, with fitness. So I just want to challenge everyone listening to this to ask yourself a question: where am I with this? Answer these questions. Look in the mirror. Go to work on this to learn, because in your learning is when you're going to grow immensely. Chris, you're a grower, you're a learner. You didn't get here by accident. You didn't write a book by accident. These questions really lay the foundation for living a life with significance.
Let's think about this in reality. Over the decades that we have been in the business, of the 5 categories we just shared with the audience, there's going to be times where you go backwards or forward. There might be a time in your life, and we could both look at this in our life and say, okay, there's been a time where all of a sudden you get so focused on business and finance that maybe you're not taking care and you're not nurturing your health and fitness. There might be a time where you're really focused on children and you're not spending the time with your spouse that you need, or you're not being spiritually based. In reality, that's why you want a mentor in every area. So you have somebody that can say, hey, how are you doing when it comes to making sure that you're spending time and letting your wife or your husband know they love them? How are you doing when it comes to seeing your children or grandchildren? Have you taken the time to take care of yourself? Because there's different times in our life where we put a different focus. And that's why you and I have talked about this before. There's co-mentoring. Co-mentoring would be like you and me. It's that iron sharpens iron mindset that you're pushing each other. And in another reality, I've had friends where they were really great when it comes to spirituality, and they would push me in that area, and I would push them in business and finance. So you might have somebody that's a mentor in one area, and you're mentoring them in another area. So you don't have to have one person in for all 5. You can have different people that are challenging you in every area. The key here is it has to be an intentional relationship that you're looking for to grow. And then the question we have to ask ourselves is, what's the worst that can happen if you approach somebody that you admire and you let them know? I could personally tell you that I've never had anybody when I went and told them and I asked them to be a mentor, or it just so happened it happened naturally in many cases because I just told them what I admire about them. And I start
Right.
asking questions about the area that they stood out in. And it happens. People don't realize how easy this is.
Talk to me about your mentors. So let's give them some model of what you're doing. So talk to me about yours in these categories.
Well, I would say my first mentor I had in he actually hit three categories was a gentleman by the name of Bob Plar. And he was my mentor in it when it came to spirituality because he's a very spiritual person. We would work out first thing in the morning at 4:30. He was my physical health and fitness mentor, and then he was also exceptional at business, at business and finance at that time. And then later on, when he got married, he became a wonderful mentor in marriage. Sean Wolfington is another gentleman, and Mr. Wolfington, J.E. Wolfington, they were wonderful mentors in business and finance. Actually, in every one of the categories, they were wonderful. I was very fortunate, all five of them. Greg Kelly is another mentor, and Mr. Kelly have been a mentor, and Tim Kelly, the Kelly family, has been wonderful mentors to me. The first family I worked with, I told you about before that at the Oldsmith store, the Ritter family, wonderful mentors to me with me. Steve Munyon, who owns a company called Hire the Winners, and Steve is the one who invited me into the auto industry. His dad was a preacher, very spiritual. He was also very focused on business and finance and very much into health and fitness. Actually, late early on, I was more of a pusher to him. Now that he's older, he's really takes care of himself, and he's probably has excelled much more than I have in the health and fitness area because he's very focused on it. So I have different mentors. If you look in the back of the book, you can see a lot of them. I had 10 different people I interviewed. Mr. O'Connor, who was the president of sales for Ford Motor Company. Jerry Pyle, who is the president of Gulf States Toyota, is on there. I have Dave Anderson, is well known. He's at leadership training. I feel like I have been so blessed in the leaders that I have gotten to know and had that iron sharpens iron mindset. Grant Cardone is somebody that I've known since I'm 28 years old, and we were very friendly for many years. There's a gentleman by the name of Glenn Lundy that's pretty well known in the auto industry. Him and I feel like that iron sharpens iron. So I'm at the stage right now in my life, it is really easy as you are, as you know, at my age right now, it's easy to have connections. It's much more challenging if you're in your 20s or in your 30s as you're starting out. But I promise you, if you ask somebody and you tell them what you admire about them and you ask them, will you be my mentor? And you reach out to them, most of the people will be honored. People that excel in life want to support other people in having a great life.
Mm.
Part of the reason we're doing this today.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. So good. And there's so many things that are coming to mind. I recently read a really good book that was given to me by Brian Robbins. Brian Robbins works at a Toyota dealership in Battle Creek, Chris. And he is his wife, Jolene, just incredible people. And not only does he do his job at the Toyota dealership, but he also has a nonprofit, which is called Rings, where they give cars to women that are single moms that can't afford a car. So they give cars away. They've almost given over 100 cars away to single moms. I mean, what a great way to give back. And the reason I bring up Brian is because he recommended this book called Holy Moments. And in holy moments, you and I can decide if a moment is holy with our own choices. It can either be a holy moment, which is a pure moment, which is a connection moment, or not. And we get to make that choice. Now, why did I bring that up now? Because this is a holy moment. Going up to someone and saying, I really admire you and I really want to get to know you. And I would like to ask you how you got so good in business. That's a holy moment, because it takes courage sometimes to do that, to reach out to people. What you've done is, because you're a servant leader, you've also attracted these other leaders, but you're not just taking, you're give. And because of that, other people have come into your life as well, who are also servant leaders. And, I'm reminded of a season in my life where I didn't have great relationships. They were surface relationships. They were work, and then I would go home. And I'm also reminded of today with the relationships like with you, with the relationships with people I've had on this podcast, with the relationships I have with my incredible, the best wife in the planet, who is just an incredible human, with the relationships I have with Jeff Yeager, who I've known 30 years, who has a Toyota store in Southern California, Steve Cornelius, who has a Toyota store in Northern California, Mike Lunar, who's been on the podcast, who has a Toyota store. I've known him for 35 years. And these guys are great businessmen, but like you, great humans. And those are we can't always have those 35-year relationships. Drew Tutton, I've known for 2 years, but it's like a 35-year relationship. You and I have known each other for on and off for 10 or 15 years, but it's the richness of the moments. That's what I love about selfishly doing these podcasts. We get to have richness. It's when I'm doing a one-on-one with somebody or mentor and being mentored, there's no distractions. Just like this, there's no distractions. So that's just so powerful. And thank you, thank you, thank you for
I will
sharing.
say to me, you have to know what works best for you. Each of us are individuals. I like a mentor that's willing to challenge me. I
Yes,
enjoy everyone I mentioned was willing to challenge me. I like the
yes,
fact that I don't have to guess what they're thinking. That's what I loved about the Kellys because they were blunt with me. The gentleman I work with now is like we talked about it, Andrew Schultz. He is blunt as can be. He doesn't mind telling me, but here's what I do understand. I believe this. I don't know if you can read that. Can you see that?
go ahead and read it for the audience if you
It
would.
says, "People do not care how much you know until they know how much you people do not care how much you know until they know how much you care."
Right.
That's
Beautiful.
really in life in general. That's your children, that's your friends. When you know that they care, but they could be blunt with you and they could
Yes,
challenge you. And here's about when I'm talking about the theory of 5 and those 5 categories, you're gonna have some areas that you say, "You know what? That's natural to me. I'm
yes,
good at this." But remember, there's always somebody better.
yeah,
There's always somebody better that's gonna be able to push you to get better.
yeah,
You also have to recognize what is an area that's natural for you to keep pushing and you enjoy being pushed, and other areas you say, "It's not as natural to me. I need that lifeline. I need somebody to challenge me. I need somebody to tell me I'm wrong in a situation." I'm gonna tell you what I knew was natural for me of the 5 categories. You know, being a good business person and focusing on business was very natural to me. I just couldn't get enough of it. To me, it was like a sport. I couldn't get enough of it. Being a good father, very natural for me. I'm almost obsessive with the children and my grandchildren. Health and fitness, very natural to me. I wanted to find people that were great to push me. Spirituality was not. Being caring about people, but being religious and understanding religion wasn't. I needed people like the Wolfington family. I needed people because everyone I have is very spiritual. I needed somebody to challenge me on that. And the key is I was aware that I needed it. Being a husband, being monogamous, very natural. Being somebody that would think about what's important to my wife, asking the right questions,
yeah,
showing I care. That wasn't as natural. Being monogamous was as natural as can be. And what I had to do is watch different people and husbands and say, now that's a great husband. So
yeah.
why do you do that? What questions do you ask? I really had to look at it almost like a technique when I was learning wrestling or karate or when I was learning chess. What's the mindset behind it? And I really had to ask great husbands. You're so loving, and I see how what I realized, there is no silver bullet. It's a bunch of little things that people do in every one of these 5 areas that all of a sudden, weeks down the road, months down the road, years down the road, decades down the road, they have this unbelievable relationship and they're a standout. There's no silver bullet in any of these categories. And you know that in business yourself. There is no silver bullet. It's never ending. It's not when you're going to say to yourself, when does this stop? It never stops. It doesn't stop until the day we're no longer here. It's that growth mindset that we have to continue to keep pushing.
Yeah, I love the growth mindset piece. Maxwell talks a lot about that. You can't go if you don't grow. We have to grow. Or either it reminds me of what is it, a whale? When they're not moving, they sink. They've
Yeah.
got to be moving. And when you and I aren't moving, we sink. I want to go through those categories. And then I've got a question for you. The categories again, give us to us the first.
First one is spirituality,
I want to stop.
religion.
I want to
That's
stop at that a minute.
yeah.
So, and obviously, there's people that are listening to this that love Jesus. I'm one of them. But I didn't start off that way. I just, through time, we talk about mentors. I got tapped on the back by Jesus and he sent me into a church. And I thought, huh. And again, there's of those who are non denominational. There's those of us who in the room who are Jewish. There's all kinds of denominations listening to this. But I have to tell you the faith piece for me. And the faith piece for me was starting my day with that, just starting my day, hanging out, journaling, really connecting. And for me personally, and I want to hear your side of this because you said that wasn't something, but when I start my day out with that, my whole life changes, my continence changes. Doesn't mean I'm perfect. Doesn't mean don't get a little tweaky. Doesn't mean I don't get a little anxious at times, but it does mean I'm formed in a foundation when I do it day by day and I have consistency. I think all these, if we think about them,
Yeah.
are based in consistency, right? But
Mhm.
let's talk about faith. And I want to go through all of them real quick. I know you have some other questions, but let's just talk about what that means to you in terms of spirituality piece. And then we'll go through the others.
Well, there's religion, there's spirituality, there's faith. But to me, it means, are you somebody that believes there's something greater than yourself? That you're not the center of the world, that giving back and caring about people and wanting to support other people in their growth and giving to them, it could be religion. But to me, if somebody's a spiritual person, it's somebody that is deep within them. It's that caring that they have for the universe and seeing other people do well. It doesn't mean patting somebody on the back and giving. It means giving of knowledge, giving of supporting somebody. It might be giving of money, but it's also making sure that they understand, hey, there is something, the world doesn't revolve around you. We're on this planet for only a finite amount of time. We want to be the best version of ourselves in every one of these areas. So, yeah, I'm a big believer. That's one of my favorite statements in the Bibles is iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
That was something in second grade that just stood out to me that I understood. Surrounding yourself with good people in these areas are going to push you.
Yeah, and you and I mentioned, just J.E. Wolfington has had a huge impact on me. I had an opportunity to work nose to nose with Sean for a number of years when we were at Half a Car. And again, you bring up some incredible souls. And I believe that who they are is first, who they are in their faith. I mean, I think every morning J.E. goes to mass at 6 a.m, still today. And the character of the man, of both of those men, shows so bright, and yet it transfers into every area of their life because of that. So let's go into the other ones. The next one on the list, of course.
Is relationships. And that's
So,
probably your partner you choose in life, your husband, your wife, your partner.
and that's a great question, I think, to ask all of us. And again, Chris, I throw you a little curveball here. What have you learned about your partner that really helped make you the man that you are today?
Well, you can't take anything for granted. Just like you can't take your health for granted, you can't take your business for granted. Sometimes the person we take for granted is the person that's at home or the person that's your partner, the person you go to dinner with, the person you lay in bed with at night. You forget to realize they need to make sure you need to let them know how much you appreciate them,
Mm,
that you're grateful for them. Sometimes we just take them for granted. And I've learned that, listen, I was married twice in my life. I've had two girlfriends in my life. Both of my girlfriends I married. And what I realized is that sometimes you start working hard and you put in this business, sometimes you're putting 50, 60, 70, 80 hours in. You're traveling sometimes around the country. You're worn out. And that person might be back waiting for you. And you
mm,
come back and you don't focus on them. You're worried about what you do. And you have to realize that person's no different. It's like a plant. You have to nurture it. You have to water it. You have to, every relationship you have, but the most important relationship is your partner, is your wife, is your husband, is the person you're going to spend your life with, because that's the person. And remember, we get what we give.
Yeah.
We're gonna get what we're gonna get in return what we give, and you have no control over that person. You
Yeah.
only have control over yourself. You have influence on that person. You have influence based on your behaviors, your actions, how grateful you are, how much you let them know, how much you appreciate them. And I believe this is my belief. Most people, men or women, when you water that plant, when you let them know how grateful for you get it in return,
Mm.
is there an exception to every rule that it's always that there's a me, my type person? Yeah, there might be that. That's probably the person you shouldn't marry. But in most cases, most people that you meet out there, when you give, you get back.
Yeah, so good. You know what I'm thinking? In our industry, there is a lot of divorce. In our industry, there's a lot of bad habits, right? And in terms of the relationship piece, I love what you said, but I had a manager when I was really young said this to me, if you don't take care of your wife, somebody else will. And yeah, that's a little cruel, but the reality is it's so true. And I believe what I've learned in my marriage, and we're coming up next week, we get to celebrate 10 years, a 10-year anniversary. And we get to do renew our vows on the beach in Coronado with every one of our kids.
Congratulations.
Isn't that amazing? Thanks to my wife. She's planned this, she's prepared for this. She's done an incredible job of making sure everybody comes together. I mean, the jewel that she is. So we get to renew our vows, spend time with all our family. We'll have 32 of us there approximately, plus my brother and his wife and his kids. So it's going to be really fun. And yeah, what I'm so proud of is that, again, I wasn't a great person. I'm a 10x better person now because I met her. You know, that old saying, she completes me. Well, it was true. Absolutely.
Well, you either grow towards each other or you grow away from each other. One of the two, and it's really a choice that we have to make.
Yep.
And if we could put, around my point of view, my challenge to myself, if I could put as much time and effort and focus on a daily basis on my business, why couldn't I do that with my spouse, with my partner in life? Now we focus so much on that, and that was my challenge to myself. The other challenge is you really have to know who you are. You talked about the auto industry, that
Yeah.
there's a lot of addictions in this
Yeah.
business.
Yes.
You have to understand who you are. I know I have an addictive personality. I knew that early on in life. I just knew that my addictions needed to be put in the right direction. If you're addicted to your family, addicted to your spouse, addicted to business, if you're addicted to health and fitness. So if you know you have an addiction and you have that addictive personality, you have to make yourself aware and say, okay, I'm going to choose the right addictions.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Amen.
choose being addicted to the 5 categories of the theory of 5 versus being addicted to going out and drinking and smoking and whatever people do in this business. But I was very fortunate. I knew that as a teenager that I had an addictive personality.
Mm. Yeah. So good. You know, I think a couple things when you say that. One of my favorite topics, we talked about this when we were offline earlier. And one of my favorite topics is nowadays emotional intelligence. And because of that, what we know, you know, I know that the people that make the most money on the planet are high in emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
But the first piece of emotional intelligence is self awareness.
Yeah.
And if we can't get anywhere if we're not self aware, you in your book you talk about who are you and you ask those questions, and I just think that's the first question in my book Keep the Change. I write about everybody's an addict. We're an addict at something, right? And we might be addicted to working out, we might be addicted to anger, we might be addicted to sexual integrity issues, we might be addicted to alcohol, we might be addicted to love. But whatever it is, we might be addicted to milk. I was as a kid, but what we know is this: we're all addicted to something. So we have to have that self awareness, like you said. It was so well said. Step one in the 12 steps of recovery is we admitted we're powerless over blank and our lives have become unmanageable. And I believe in, based on what you said, when we have to look at ourselves, when we admit, that's when everything changes. And again, I love the congruency of the theory of 5 with the message of the 12 steps, frankly, because there's a lot of message in there. I think it was Yus Mida, a friend of yours and mine, who once said, and maybe it was JE, that they used in their business the 12 steps of recovery to help run their business. A lot of the
Yeah,
principles of the 12 steps they used in their business with half a car.
I believe it was JE.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now think about that. That's powerful. And you run your life by the theory of five
I
with those principles. I know you do.
Yes.
If one listening does, that's when things dramatically change. So I want to look at the next one.
Well,
You and I,
before we even go to that, I think the most important part we talked about, the questions we ask ourselves in every one of these categories.
yes,
If
yes,
you're gonna ask your quality questions
yes.
determine our thinking, our behaviors, and our actions. So
Ooh,
questions we ask ourselves in our daily basis, that's gonna determine what we do on a daily basis. And you could be a victor or you could be a victim. The questions you ask yourself will determine if you think like a victim or a victor.
I love that. You know what's so good about that? And I know that is so true, but what we also know, it's so interesting. I was in a meeting yesterday with 5 service managers, 5 service personnel. They have 2 service managers, and there's a few other folks in the room. And I started asking them about how they're having some struggles with their service writers going out and greeting customers immediately. And we talked about how they go ahead getting them to change behavior. And what they said was, well, we tell them. And I said, well, that's the problem. If you don't ask, you're not, as Jay used to say, a man or woman convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. And that goes hand in hand, Chris, with your asking us questions in the beginning, with what you just said. We've got to be good at asking questions. Stop being judgmental and start being curious, right? That's when things change.
And I think there's nothing wrong with I catch myself scolding myself a lot. Like when I have that stinking thinking and I'm thinking it's in my mind, all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second. And I mean, I really start to scold myself. Like, what are you doing? That's really bad thinking. That's immature thinking. That's not high emotional intelligence. But
Yeah.
as long as you're aware that you're heading in the wrong direction before you actually take the action,
Yep. Yep.
that's what's important.
Yeah.
And you know what? Time and distance, sometimes before we say something or do something, time and distance will heal that wound or help our thinking. That's why sometimes you don't make a decision overnight. Mr. Kelly was wonderful at when you would ask something or were something we were to say, let me think about that.
Yeah.
He would not, we don't have to answer things right away.
Mm,
As
mm.
a leader, either as a father, a mother, as a parent, when there's a question, take some time and think about it rather than react. Because sometimes we overreact. Think about it overnight on how you want to handle it.
So good. And we were talking, the next one on our list, of course, is parenting. And what I'm believing is as great leaders are great parents, right? And and ask if there's anybody we need to ask questions of, it's our littles and our mediums and our adults, right? That we've helped birth instead of telling them, because what we know is that trust is everything. And when we ask and listen, they start trusting us. Once they start trusting us, now we can say what we can give them a direct, like you said, somebody that'll hold them accountable. But until they trust us, and of course, the littles will trust us just because
Yeah.
we're there. Mediums don't trust us so much.
Yeah.
That's when we have to ask more and listen more as parents, right? So it's our most important role. No doubt about it.
Well, the
Yep.
thing that stood out to me most is in Stephen Covey years ago. I remember when I first became a parent and my daughters got older and my children got older is the seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I remember many times going, ooh, I'm glad I asked a question and listened
Yes.
versus assuming. And
Yes.
that business and parenting carry back and forth leadership at work and in parenting. And if you look at every one of the people that work with you, and you say to yourself, now that's somebody's father, that's
Mhm.
somebody's son, that's
Yes.
somebody's daughter.
So
How would I want them treated? And sometimes you're going to treat them and be blunt because you're going to say, that's, I would want my daughter or my children or my father. I want someone to know this. And then sometimes you're going to have to say, you know what? But make sure you say it with kindness and caring, but
Mm.
they have a clear understanding of if this behavior doesn't stop. So they really go hand in hand, the parenting and also being a leader.
Yes. Yeah. You know, it's so interesting. You and I were talking about our friend Joel Manby, and Joel wrote a book called Love Works. And the first one, Love is Patient, Love is Kind. And Joel says, hey, and Joel's a very kind man. I've not worked under him, but I know of him as a coach and an author and a leader. to be a just a sweetheart.
Well, he
And
was
yet,
well respected at Saturn, and at Saab for years.
yeah,
We were very respected within General Motors.
yes, but he's firm. He said kindness isn't weakness. Kindness is accountability. Some of the times we can be kind in accountability. Gallup says a great coach is someone who establishes expectations. We can do that home or at work, continuously coaches. At home, that might be asking questions and listening and holds them accountable. Those three things help us build our families, but also managers, listen to this. Listen to what we said. Establish expectations, coach all the time. In other words, ask and listen, ask and listen, ask and listen, build trust, and define accountability because that's when people respect us and listen to us. And you've said that from the get go, right, Chris? Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, and by the way, you have, I know you have an incredible family. I see your family all the time. You post to your family. Let's do a shout out to your family, your wife and kids.
Oh,
Tell
yeah,
us.
in fact, I'm excited Lisa's coming to visit me. 'Cause I go back and forth a lot and travel, so she's
Yeah.
visiting me this weekend. We're excited and planning the weekend together, and I'm talking to my daughters right now. What are we gonna do for Father's Day and and our children? What we're gonna do for Father's Day. So, yes, that is the joys of life is that when you take a deep breath and you go, "Boy, am I fortunate?" And sometimes we forget to be grateful and realize how fortunate we are. And I've told my children this many times. I said, "Listen, at my age, no matter what happens to me, I've had a great life." And you have to realize that, that your life is really good. And you hope every day is truly a gift, but we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And as you get older, life's not easy because as you get older, you lose people that you love. You
Yes.
lose family members. You lose, younger folks that are younger than you use people that you care about. And that's why having that spirituality, the first one to go back to, you have to believe there's something greater than yourself. The world doesn't revolve around you.
Yes. No, it's so interesting, Chris. I always wanted to get there. I didn't know where there was, but I always knew I wanted to get there. And I knew what it was. Big, boat or businesses, whatever. And the more I focus on the now, what happens when I focus on the now is it allows me to do my grateful list. I have a group of probably 20 people I do one-on-one coaching with. And guess what? Every one of them do. They write down a grateful list every day and send it to me because I want them to realize what they're grateful for. And this is COOs, this is CEOs, this is sales managers. I want them to know what they're grateful for because I've got one young man who's just had a tough last 2 years. He's a high level leader and he's struggling. And I said, just get that gratitude list. If nothing else, get that gratitude list established. So that's been a big part of his growth. And you know what's so cool is Father's Day. You mentioned that you're a planner. I'm not so good at that, but I did reach out to all my kids who are in California, and I am speaking at Celebrate Recovery for my 40th year of sobriety. Praise Jesus!
Congratulations.
And I've invited all my kids. So it's a day after Father's Day. So I don't know if it'll all happen. I'm pretty sure it will, but I'm just so excited about all of them being there on hopefully both sides of the family, but definitely my California kids are going to join us and just tell the story of what sobriety's really meant for me and the journey I'm on. And grateful is my word. It is the word that I just hold on to every moment. Goes back to those holy moments, man. Right?
Well, it
Holy.
also comes down to whole and thinking and the questions you ask yourself. I travel a lot. I work a lot of hours. And then there were sometimes I would get what I would call that victim mentality. And then I realized, wait a second. Think of when you're flying back home or when you're traveling or when you're going to see your wife or when you're going to see your children or grandchildren. The feeling you have as you're going to see them, the only way I could describe it is when I was a young boy the night before Christmas. And I'm like, you get to have that dozens of times every year because you feel like that little boy that the night before Christmas that you're going to have an opportunity to see your children and grandchildren. You're going to have an opportunity to see your wife. How exciting it is. And it was like a light switch that went from saying, wait a second, how many people get to have that feeling so often? Like they were a child again and that excitement. that on my way home on the plane, I'm looking at photos of them. I mean, I'm spending 45 minutes just looking at photos and smiling, so excited, like I can't wait to see them. No different than you would look at like the present that you want when you were 5 years old or 6 years old. So that transition of thinking just changing of like, wow, what a difference. And my other statement that I believe in wholeheartedly, I believe that people that excel and have a happy and prosperous life, they are grateful for what they have and they understand for what they have, but they also always focus on continuous improvement.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I loved about Mr. Wolfington. He's 90 some years old. And when we had lunch or with him a year ago or 8 months ago, I remember leaving with Greg Kelly going, tell me you don't feel inspired
Yeah.
that somebody in
90%.
91, 92 years old is so disciplined and so focused. And look at how he walks straight in comparison to other
Oh, yeah.
people. It's
Yeah.
a night and day difference. He's like
Yeah.
one in a million men in his age group that move like he does and has the energy
Yes.
that he does.
Yeah, yeah, that is so well said because he does. He's got this incredible posture. You know what it is that just pulls you in because he's obviously strong in so many areas of his life. That's so good. So a shout out again to the Woofingtons. So next one is finance, and the one after that is fitness. We're not if you want to deep dive in it, grab the book, Theory of Five.
I have the main book and a workbook, but I will tell you, I did a master class. I actually had someone teach it, and I went through as a student.
Right
And
on.
when I answered the question as a student that I put together for this
Yep.
from the book, I was like, wow, it was much easier to write it than really dig in and answer the questions and knowing somebody's going to ask you. So
Yes.
what did you put down for that answer in that question? So we'd recommend if you take the time and invest and buy the workbook, answer those questions.
Yeah.
It's also for folks that are leaders. You buy that for your team and you have a class and you use that as a class,
Yeah.
during your morning sales training or morning meetings, it will get people focused on looking at life because the questions, as we mentioned before, the questions are powerful questions to get you to think in every area of your life. What
Mm.
can I do to continually improve?
Oh, love it. This is my happy house right here. That's for sure. So but you had some other questions, and I know we're running a little long, but that's okay. Give me those questions that you said. I got another set of questions I'm going to ask. So let's just throw them out there. Then we'll wrap it up and we'll make sure people know how to get a hold of Chris Saraceno.
Well, the one thing I'd like everybody to do is to really sit down and write down the people that you believe in these categories. Now
Okay.
that you spend first the five people you spend the most time with.
Okay.
Because remember, people will treat you the way you allow them to treat you. And I'm not in any way saying, hey, dump that person you knew for 40 years and tell them, hey, I can't spend time with you because the theory of five, you don't fit into it. What I am saying is that there's nothing wrong with letting somebody know, hey, you know what? Every time that we talk, all you talk about is what's bad in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what happened is they're either going to stop or they're going to realize, oh, I don't want to be around him because he's going to hold me accountable
Yes.
for the way I act. So that there's nothing wrong because why should you pull yourself down? And then I want you to write down a person that you do not that you know and admire, but don't have a relationship with that you believe could support you in a category of personal growth in these five areas. Think of these people. Remember, the opportunity we have, the percentage of your mother and father meeting each other in this planet is trillions to one. We already won the lottery of life. We have one life to live. Live your best life and decide that today by living a theory of five life and surrounding yourself with the right people. And if you're a parent, I know every one of us want to influence who our children hang out with, but you got to also look at yourself. Doesn't make a difference if you're 5 or 50. Who we spend time with will influence our thinking, our behaviors, and our actions and our results. So choose them wisely who you spend time with.
Perfect. Perfect. First of all, I don't think anybody's ever come on the podcast and said, I have some questions for the audience. So I just really want to shout out to you for being creative with that. Another thing too, man, can we like hang out another 2 hours, please? I mean,
Yeah.
unbelievable. And I really want to encourage you, if you're listening to this and you need to talk about some of this stuff, give Chris a call. How would they get a hold of Chris Saraceno?
Well, I'll give you one. I'm going to give you a gift code for the book. So the gift
Okay.
code, you go to theory5.com, the number five,
Okay.
and you put gift, capital G, gift 2025. The
Okay.
book will be free. You just pay for shipping. And that's for anybody who watching this podcast. We just set that up. And then if they want to get in touch with me, they could email me at C Saraceno, Saraceno, at kellycar.com. That's KELLYCAR.com. They could call me on my cell phone, 321 960 6133, 321 960 6133.
Thank you for that. You and Bob Goff, Bob Goff, the author, he puts his phone number in the back of the book. So he says, you can call me anytime.
I think mine was in the back of the book. I think all my information, my business cards. When I started selling cars in 1984, I had my home number on every business card.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would have customers call me at home. And then as soon as cell phone comes out, I put my cell phone number down. We make it that if you're a manager within Kelly, you have to have your cell phone on your business card.
Yep, I agree. I think that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Chris, you again bring so much to the table in so many ways. I'm a better man because I've talked to you today. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And your time is so valuable, and yet you've taken the time to share it with our audience. Bless you, brother. Hope you have a great Father's Day coming up here in a couple, 3 weeks. And I look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks again for being on Keep the Change. Folks, thanks for joining us. If you like this, share this. If you don't like it, share it. Subscribe to Keep the Change, and let's get that word out and go to work, do the work, start doing the steps, start asking yourself good questions, and see who you need to bring into your circle of influence. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Have a great day.